Welcome back inside the film room. I'm Zach Goins, and today I'm joined by James Lance, who plays Trent Crimm on Apple TV Plus's Emmy-winning comedy Ted Lasso. James, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm very well, my friend. Yeah, I'm good. Nice to be here.
I'm thrilled to get to talk to you because season 3 is out. People love it. It's come to its close, and what a year, what a season for James Lance, for Trent Crimm, really making a big jump here. How are you feeling now that it's all wrapped up? And I'm sure it's been an emotional couple days, couple weeks for you all.
I've always been like my experience of being a working actor for a long time is that when you wrap the job is finished, and it's kind of done, and you go through this little period of time of saying goodbye to it. But this time, I that hit me actually when the final episode of season 3 went out. That's when it kind of really kind of landed in me that that the show is no longer, or this season certainly is no longer happening, and I didn't know quite what to feel about it, because there'd been 3 years of knowing that there was this gentle kind of pulse of positivity and love and comedy and everything, although all of that, suddenly it's not there, and that does feel strange. So when people say, God, I can't cope with no more of the show, like, I'm pretty zen about those things, generally speaking, but I know what people mean. and I feel it too. And when people say to me, please, tell me, is there a season 4? I say, I genuinely know as much as you do. So we're all in the not knowing. But I think ultimately, because it's been a few days now, I just feel full of gratitude. I really do. I just feel so lucky and grateful to be in this amazing program, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it sounds like a lot of what you're going through is what us fans are feeling, the sad emotions, the hope for a season 4, the gratitude that this beautiful show exists. But
Yeah.
it's a lot of an emotional roller coaster. And Trent Crimm making a big jump this season was quite the roller coaster as well. Going from what was, I guess, popping in and out as a recurring character versus now season 3 being a regular that you're here for a whole lot. And it's just such an exciting time for this character to make a big jump. And I'm curious for you, when did you know that this is the path that Trent was taking? Is that something that you found out, late season 2, that you were going to be making that big jump? Or was it, we're here for season 3 filming, and then look at this, I've got a whole lot more to do this season?
I knew in between seasons 1 and season 2 that Trent Crimm, I got a text from Jason that said that he's very much around in the world of season 2 if I'll come back. I'm like, of course I'll come back. And he says, but it's season 3, Trent's arc there is what I'm most excited for you, is what he said to me on this text. And I was like, oh my God. I mean, I've said this before, but I actually cried.
I can't blame you. So it was the long before any of us knew it was coming. The plans were being made, and that's a very ominous text for him to send you. No details, but just stick around.
No details, but there's something good's going to happen for Trent in season 3. And then I found out what was going to happen in season 3 about episode, I forget which one, it was 10 maybe, or 9 in season 2, and I was walked to the pub where Trent bumps into Ted.
Right.
Yeah. And Joe Kelly, one of the great co-creators, was on this side, and Jason was on this side, and they kind of walked me like a 2-minute walk, and just went, okay, so he's like, he's like, Trent's gonna do a deep dive book in season 3. He's gonna be, in the locker room and blah blah blah. And he went, oh, and by the way, you were there with that guy. And I'm like, I looked at the supporting artist, and I was like, I'm here with that guy. And he's like,
that's what you mean.
he's like, you're here with that guy. And I'm like, and they're like, okay, and let's hit your marks and action. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. Yeah.
Obviously, we don't get really that confirmation of Trent's sexuality until the Amsterdam episode this season, but a lot of the fans, in the episode before Amsterdam, we're picking up on the rainbow mug that Trent uses quite a bit this season. But even before that, the moment that you're talking about, so many eagle-eyed fans were like, Trent was at the pub with another man. We have our thoughts, we have our theories, but there was no confirmation. So that's interesting to hear that when a lot of fans started to pick up on it was the same time while you're filming that scene that you really found out where you're headed as well.
Absolutely. And that rainbow mug was actually my mug.
Really?
Yeah, I love Snoopy, and I love that. I've got a few of those Snoopy mugs, and I had it at home, and I was like, Trent would have his coffee out of this mug, 100%. And I'm like, I wonder if they'll let me do it. So I went and I asked production if we could get that mug in, and they were like, yeah, they got it through,
Art
which was really
imitating
cool.
life.
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah.
Well, with Trent making that jump this season, I know like previously we'd seen him mostly in press conferences or interacting with Ted. There was not a ton of crossover with the larger character body, I guess. So I'm curious for you when you're going into this, knowing that you're going to be playing with across from a lot more different people. Obviously, you have a lot of moments with Colin. Is there a particular actor or character that you were most excited to see Trent Crimm interact with?
Well, yeah, I didn't have very much to do with Rebecca Welton. And I always thought that Trent Crimm and Rebecca Welton in a room together was an interesting cocktail. There's something.
I love this at the when you first start writing your book, everybody's behind your back with that.
I mean, I think Trent recognizes a lot. I think, or maybe that's just Jimmy Lance being slightly in love with Hannah. I'm not sure. But I think Trent recognizes what an extraordinary woman Rebecca Welton is, and I would have liked to have played a bit more. I would have liked to have done more with her and Keeley as well. Fun. I mean, they're just amazing. They're just amazing human beings, and I love their characters so much. I just think they're extraordinary, and I think Trent would have quite liked to come and hang out with those guys a bit more.
Yeah, we could have gotten him in on some of the girl talk sessions that Ted and Higgins drop in on.
I think Trent would have been pretty damn good on that girl talk stuff. To be honest with you,
he's a listener. As a journalist, he's got to listen. He knows how to get information out of people, so I think Absolutely. He'd be perfect for that. I do love the Roy Kent connection this season as well in episode 3, where we get that great moment between you and Brett in the locker room where you finally squash the beef. You talk about your separate careers and kind of the way that they mirrored each other and what you were trying to do. That's another great moment, a highlight for me.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I loved when you asked who would I like to do more of. What I did have was a few moments with with Roy Kent, and I mean, there's just something funny about Trent Crimm and Roy Kent in a room together, in my opinion. I used to just laugh out loud at stuff that Brett would do, and yeah, like one of my favorite moments is when we're talking about our favorite Julie Andrews characters, and I say, Clarissa from The Princess Diaries, and like the way that Roy Kent goes, fuck yeah, Princess Diaries.
He's got a respect for that. We love
it. I love it. I think there was just a big mutual respect. And also because I had this backstory that Roy Kent was everything that Trent Crimm's dad would have loved his son to be. So when Roy kind of took Trent in a bit, there was a healing vibe going on there. So there was a nice, like that thing when if you become friends with someone that you're intimidated by originally, and then you're like, oh, actually they're a pussycat. There was that kind of chemistry, I think, with Roy.
Oh man, that was a great Brett Goldstein Roy Kent impression, by the way.
Thanks.
I feel like everybody's got one of those, but we talked about Hannah and Juno and Brett. Now obviously Billy Harris, as Colin Hughes.
Yeah.
Such a great relationship that is built here across multiple episodes as we explore this arc of Colin coming out. But obviously the crown gem in this is the Amsterdam episode and Sunflowers. The two of you have this night out, and it's really his coming out to you that's so beautiful. And I know that's obviously such a weighty topic to tackle. This show has never shied away from diving into mental health or political statements, things like that. But this is something that is not just your average joke one-liner or something in a comedy. So when you're approaching that, was there a different sort of vibe or sense that you're like, okay, this is serious, we have to make sure that we're doing this story justice, or was it just another day on the job?
No, that wasn't another day on the job. That was like, that's a bit like if you're preparing for a wedding, you do all this sort of, preparation, but then there's going to be the ceremony. Do you know what I mean? And I would say that for me, in Trent's arc and with Colin's arc, that was the ceremony. Yeah. So I took it. As both of us did. We took it as seriously as you take anything, because it's such a opportunity, to represent a sort of a situation that needs to be represented, and it needs to be normalized and familiarized and become part of the conversation in a way that just busts out of any form of oppression. So it was a huge honor, and I read loads of case studies of athletes who were gay and and unable to come out, or feeling they were unable to come out for whatever reasons. I mean, I remember one comment that I read, which just said, I never came out to my parents because I didn't want to be homeless. And when you look at the kind of the statistics of suicide, in men, and also particularly in gay men, it's horrific. It's heartbreaking, and all because they're sort of unable to live their authentic lives, and
Right.
that's just got to get blown out of the water. That's got to change, and to be a part of a show that can add to that conversation is just, I mean, it's kind of everything you want to do in art. You want to be in something that's going to have an impact and a positive impact on the world, and this really has. So yeah, it was a privilege.
Yeah, it's not only just like, it doesn't just like, breeze over this. It's something that plays out over multiple episodes. You really have time to sit and think with it. And obviously the performances from you and from Billy are stellar and really just help drive it home. So kudos to you two on that and the way that this story was handled.
And that it was handled really well by the writers. And I think the other thing that's like kind of lovely, that was lovely for me to play as a sort of like slightly more the old guard, is that, if there is a silver lining in trauma, it's that you can be there for somebody else that's going through the same thing, and it can lead to empathy. And by the time that Trent gets into that night in Amsterdam with Billy, he's fully equipped to hold the space for Colin, and just, it's actually hugely cathartic for Trent as well, to be able to speak really freely and to really empathize with somebody. I think it was a very healing connection, and that's what's so great for Trent Crimm, is that his trauma can actually help somebody else.
And I love obviously that's the very heavy scene, but then as you get the partying throughout the night as a sort of like cap on that, and then later when we come back in episode 9 and you have the locker room after he comes, or I guess it's in 10 when he comes out, and you have how did it go, better or worse than you thought? And it's just like,
yeah,
okay, we've come a long way since spilling our hearts out to each other back in the
100%.
Amsterdam.
And that night, we only saw a little splash of that night with Trent and Colin. I mean, they had a good night. You know what I mean? They ripped it up. I was so happy.
The vanilla vodka was flowing, right?
Yeah, man, it was all flowing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I know that in a previous interview, so Trent Crimm, obviously, as we see him get a little bit more comfortable, the style changes a bit. We go from the buttoned up, the tie, to a little bit more casual. We've got Dolly Parton t-shirts, band t-shirts, sports t-shirts. And I know in a past interview, you said that Trent's t-shirts or Trent's attire sort of mirrors his story or tells a story in and of itself. And I consider myself a Ted Lasso super fan. I've watched it. I've dissected everything, but I would love if you could share, because I've got nothing. What's the story being told here via the t-shirts and the clothing? How does it unfold?
You mean how does it unfold? How do you mean?
In a past interview, you had said that the clothing represented a story or helped represent Trent's story. So
Yeah,
as I was like looking at a Dolly Parton T-shirt or the Cure
yeah.
T-shirt, I was trying to figure out what exactly that went together. Was that part of Trent's story?
It was. I mean, the short answer it was that what you're seeing is a man become more comfortable in his skin.
Gotcha.
And I always had this George Michael lyric in my mind, which was sometimes the clothes do not make the man. And from Freedom. It's from the. I'm pretty sure it's from that song Freedom, and because like George Michael famously had to kind of like keep his sexuality to himself because he was this kind of pin-up idol selling absolutely loads of records and then but he wanted to be his authentic self and hence that line sometimes the clothes do not make the man, which I just loved. And this was like the opposite of that. So or see in season one those clothes that you see Trent wearing are old assumed ideas that he felt that he needed to put on. So like he comes from a family where the dad would wear a jacket and a tie, right? And also I think for a lot of his life he would have kind of held his sexuality underwater basically, and so presented himself as a sort of alpha male heterosexual guy, which is how I think you first see him when he's in the press conference. He's this sort of Trent, he's posturing,
Right.
but there's no need to posture anymore. And in a way you're seeing another layer of Trent Crimm sort of coming out. I mean, he's out in terms of his sexuality, but although you don't actually ever hear him talk about it with anybody other than Colin, but it's like another layer of being able to be who you really are, because there's these old shadows and echoes of kind of keeping yourself sort of suppressed, you know what I mean?
Right.
And by being accepted by a team of men in a locker room, not just Colin, but Jamie and Beard and Ted, is that you'll see someone going, do you know what, maybe, just maybe I'm allowed to be myself. And he's a Cure fan, he's a Golden Girls fan, he's clearly a Dolly Parton fan, but anyway, and more. Yeah, there's more to it. So yeah, that was supposed to be a short answer. It was a long answer. Sorry.
It was a very great answer. I appreciate it. You helped put it into perspective for me. But my final question here, as we see the ending of Trent Crimm, the book comes out, it's a success, and I love the note from Ted to Trent when he's giving him the notes back, and he says to change the title, make it goes from the Lasso way to the Richmond way, because it was never about me. And I think that that's a very meta commentary as well about, you mentioned season 4. I know they've said this arc is coming to a close. Who knows what's next? So that same note from Ted, from Jason, could also be applied to the show of Ted Lasso. Change the name. It was never about me moving forward, if this were to spin off into like a Richmond show or something like that. But I just love that was like the way to kind of tie it all up. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge at the audience, I think.
Yeah, I love it too. I think it's great. I mean, somebody said to me the other day, they were like, I've got it. Season 4 is going to be AFC Richmond. Boom. And you kind of go, oh yeah, totally. I could see it. It could be. Who knows? Yeah.
Well, when I was talking with Billy, I asked him what a potential spinoff would look like to him, and he said that he just really wants to see Colin and Trent Crimm, go like on I can't remember exactly what he said, but it involved traveling around Europe, going to Italy, in a car together, just these two on a travel show, essentially. So as long as you're in for that, I think we can make it happen.
I'm so down with that. And the thing is, I think Trent Crimm's traveled a bit, so he'd be able to take Colin to the future.
That's what he said, that you would be almost like a tour guide. You just are a well-traveled man. A lot about
I mean, I think Trent Crimm taking Colin around Berlin would be a bit of fun.
I mean, we've got the Amsterdam episode down, so now we just need to spread across Europe.
But if it was taking him to some of the places I've got in mind, I'm not sure it'd be quite the family show that we've grown to love and adore.
Well, James, thank you so much for chatting today. It was an absolute pleasure. I'm so excited to see what comes next for you for Ted Lasso, and especially throughout awards season, because I know there's going to be a lot of buzz around this show. So I'm excited to keep tabs on it all.
Oh, bless you, man. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. Thank you.